But I do that immediately. Okay. You are wrong.
Wait.
Starting?
Okay.
You are live.
I'm live. How are you, everybody? It is Brad Bernstein. I am here to answer your immigration questions, and throw your questions in the comments, whether on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, I'm on YouTube. I'm on it all at this very moment. So throw your questions in. I'm going to be answering. All right. And now we're better. Little technical difficulty there. So basically easy ease, just redo your work permit. I-765 all over again. And Christina, I just lost Christina's question. Going way too fast on TikTok. We'll get to you in a little bit. And Joseph on Facebook. Facebook has ended, by the way. Why has Facebook ended? We don't know. But Facebook needs to go back up live again. Spar and Bernstein team. Let's go to YouTube. Good morning, Brad. I filed my N-400. This is Beverly Robinson. I filed my N-400 in December 2024, and after my green card from VAWA after my green card in VAWA from 2021, would I have a problem if I ever filed taxes for 2 years? I was not working but going to school. If you did not work, you do not need to file tax returns. You only need to file tax returns if you did work. When you go on your N-400 for your citizenship, the only issue when it comes to taxes and you didn't file it is the immigration officer is going to perhaps question you that maybe you worked off the books and didn't pay taxes. That would be a problem trying to file for your citizenship. So you have to come with evidence that you were in school and show how you were able to support yourself without taking a job. Because if you can't show how you supported yourself, then they're going to believe that you were working off the books. So as long as you were in school full time and you were able to show how you supported yourself without taking a job, you don't have to file taxes on money that you did not earn. That would be quite ridiculous. Also on YouTube, Olga Reutman asks, hello, my brother has a petty larceny for a chicken misdemeanor. I don't know what a chicken misdemeanor is, but I know what a petty larceny misdemeanor class A that was sealed in 2015, state of New York. He has war. Is it safe to apply for adjustment of status through marriage to U.S. citizen? What does war mean? Yeah, there has to be some acronym. I don't know what war means off the top of my head. Let's see if I Google it. What would war mean? So I can answer her question. War is war. What does that mean? I have no idea. Even Google has no idea. Google has no idea what war means too. Okay. The answer, though, is that if you have, it sounds like it was sealed. So he was arrested for a misdemeanor. If it was sealed, that means he was found innocent, certainly in New York. And so he has an arrest and no conviction. And therefore, he should be eligible to adjust his status. Obviously, you have to indicate that you were arrested and the case was dismissed. You do have to show good moral character, but the case was more than 10 years ago, and I assume he has no arrest since. So I would say yes, based on what you're telling me, it's very, very safe to file for adjustment and get a green card. Casey also has a question on YouTube. Hey, Brad, I submitted a VAWA petition based on emotional and verbal abuse and other things from my husband, who is a green card holder. How long before I receive a notice, work permit, and social? Well, if you filed a VAWA without filing an adjustment, you will never get a work permit until your VAWA is approved, which takes 3.5 years. But if you filed an adjustment application with your VAWA petition, you should be able to get a work permit in 90 days. All right, on Facebook, we're still not live on Facebook. That's crazy. What happened on Facebook? Maybe we're back live on Facebook now, and I don't know. But all right. Kevin Smith on YouTube says, is there any relief to someone who pleaded guilty to an aggravated felony involving a crime involving moral turpitude? Well, that's weird. You're either an aggravated felon or somebody who was convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude. It depends on what your status is. Do you have a green card? When your conviction was it a crime involving moral turpitude? Was it an aggravated felony? Your question, you can't plead guilty in the same offense, cannot be considered an aggravated felony and crime involving moral turpitude. So your question makes 0 sense. Pastor Shaquille Forbes on YouTube. And you get a green card in front of the immigration judge after your I-751 has been denied by USCIS for misrepresentation. If your I-751 was denied for misrepresentation because they're claiming that you're in if your I-751 was denied for misrepresentation, or even if it was a fraudulent marriage, but you have evidence that it was not misrepresentation, it was not a fraudulent marriage, then yes, a judge should be able to approve your I-751 before a judge, but it really depends on what's going on your case. Mervin Trace Reyes says, how long can a mother with a green card petition to his over 21 child compare to a sibling with a U.S. citizen over 21 petition with a U.S. military background? How long can a mother with a green card petition to a 21-year-old child compared to a sibling with, okay. So you're questioning whether it's quicker to do an F2B, which is a lawful permanent resident parent filing for a unmarried child over the age of 21 versus a sibling petitioning an F4, and that sibling's in the military. It's still going to be faster for you filing in the F2B category. That's about 8 to 10 years versus the F4 petition, which could be over 20. Let's see what else is happening here. On Instagram, Gigolo Johnny just says, I got my immigration visa to come into the United States after going through an EB2 process. Can I still work outside the country on a rotation basis of 28 days, 28 days? You can do whatever you want, Giga Johnny, but you have to be permanently living in the United States. So if you're 28 days in and 28 days out, you're really, really on the cusp of not living permanently in the United States. I think if you worked 60 days in, 30 days out, 60 days in, 30 days out on a consistent basis, you're fine. I would say 28 days, probably you're leaving it up to the discretion of people at the airport, which you shouldn't do. Sandra Klavjog, my husband's I-130. This is also on Instagram. My husband's I-130 was approved, and we are moving to the next step. How long do we have to pay for the NCIS? How long do we have to pay? How long do we have to pay for the NCIS fee? Well, it should be approximately 45 days after the I-130 is approved. You should be getting your fee bills. That's generally how the process works. Powerhouse, what's the possibility of getting a job in America? I'm in Nigeria. Well, what do you do, Powerhouse? You need to apply for a job and then see if you qualify for a work visa. So it's not applying for a job here. Primal Mitch, also on Instagram. How long can I get my green card via marriage based? Well, Primal Mitch, if you are in the United States, adjustment of status, you're eligible to adjust. It could be about 6 to 9 months right now. If you're outside of the United States, it's closer to 2 years. Planet SS6 on TikTok says, can a parent with a green card apply for an adult child who overstayed a B1, B2 visa? Yes, but that adult child is going to wait 7, 8, 9, 10 years for a green card. Does not make you legal to be in the United States while that petition is being filed. And unless that child is 245I, which means that you had something filed in the system before April 30th, 2001, that person would need to do a provisional waiver. That child would need to do a provisional waiver at the end based on hardship to you and the father, if the father's here legal too. And then go home with the provisional waiver, which is request for forgiveness. Go home, pick up your green card and return. Probably be home for 2 to 3 weeks, but it's a long process. The answer is yes. Start the I-130, but it's going to be a long process. Hi, Brad. Does having a combo card mean you are documented? It certainly doesn't mean you're undocumented. You are here in the United States under some form of lawful status, which means you are parole. You have the ability to be paroled in the United States, and you are work authorized. So that gives you some form of documentation to show you are not a quote undocumented immigrant. So the answer would be yes. Good morning. I have my interview in 2 weeks for adjustment of status through marriage. This is Weezen. I was arrested in 2016 and charged for grand theft, but the judge dismissed my case. Am I good to go? If it was dismissed and you have no other arrests, you are not inadmissible. You are good to go, assuming it's a good marriage. You still have to prove good moral character. So having an arrest goes against your good moral character, but it was 10 years ago. My advice always is if you have an arrest and you go to immigration on your own without a lawyer, you are jumping into a pool not knowing how to swim. And you could run into a big problem. Sometimes you jump into a pool not knowing how to swim and you drown. Sometimes you jump into a pool and you don't know how to swim, but you struggle to the side and you're okay. But either way, you're going to struggle or you're going to drown. I would suggest have a lawyer to help save you. Miss Patty Ann on TikTok. I'm an international adoptee with dual U.S. Columbia citizenship. Will I be targeted if I travel? No, you will not be targeted if you travel. You are a U.S. citizen. Drop mic. End of story. You're okay to travel. When you go to Colombia, you show your Colombian passport, and they welcome you to Colombia as a Colombian citizen. And when you return to the United States, you show your U.S. passport, and they welcome you back as a U.S. citizen. Does the H-1B visa holders have to pay $250? It appears that everyone will have to be paying that. I don't believe there's going to be any people who do not, but let's see how it's done in practice. Captain on TikTok says 34 months since the interviewed by USCIS for asylum and still pending. It could be another 34 months, Captain, for all we know. Some people have filed asylum for more than 10 years and have not been called. Others have filed for asylum in 6 months and have gotten called. So if you have, this is what we do for people who've been waiting for 3 years or longer and have not been called for their asylum. If you have a valid asylum claim, meaning that if you were to go on your asylum interview, there is a very, very good chance that you would win your asylum case, then that's a case that we would want to try to get an interview as quickly as possible. And we would do it by doing what's called a pre-litigation mandamus, which is a threat of a mandamus. A mandamus is a federal litigation to force the government to do their job, which is to adjudicate your case in a reasonable amount of time. But if you do not have a good case, then you should be happy you don't have asylum, because then you would go in, you'd be denied and be put in deportation. So there are things we can do for people who have pending asylum for years, provided they have good cases. Rigel Berju on YouTube asks, I had a trip outside the United States for about 9 months. This was due to COVID and border closure. Would this hamper my application if I now apply for citizenship? Yes. If you were outside the United States for more than 6 months, you are allowed back in. Count 5 years from that day before you file for your citizenship. New fatherhood on TikTok. More than 3 months has passed since my naturalization interview. I'm still waiting for an oath ceremony. By law, they have 120 days to make a decision and give you the oath ceremony. If it goes beyond 120 days, I would say there's some issue with your case and you should seek legal assistance. I am Kanye. What's the overall cost to doing 601 waiver? The filing fee is a little over $1,000, depending on whether it's a 601A or a 601. If you're asking me what my legal fees are, I have no idea what your case is about, so you would need to have a consultation. Hatham ZR on Instagram. What's the impact on civil order of protection filed by wife on I-751 divorce waiver? Believe it or not, the impact is good, shockingly. And the reason is when you go to remove the conditions of your permanent residence, you do not need to prove good moral character. You have to show you don't have a criminal record, but having an order of protection is not a criminal record. And if you're basing it on a divorce, that means you're going on your own, trying to prove it was a bona fide marriage back in the day. And some evidence of being in a bona fide marriage is you have an order of protection against you. People in business marriages who don't care about each other don't get into fights to such a level that there is orders of protection and the police is showing up and the police see you living there at the home with the wife. So believe it or not, an order of protection is for an I-751 waiver, assuming it didn't lead to an arrest, is good evidence of a bona fide marriage, which is what you need to prove to get your green card. Aman on TikTok wants to know, motion to terminate was rejected by a judge. The VAWA approved. Reason visa is not current on my IB1 category. If your VAWA was approved, unless if it was based on marriage to a U.S. citizen, you're an immediate relative. And if it was based on being married to a permanent resident, VAWAs take 3 years, and those cases for F2A are only backed up 5 months. So, Aman, there's some other issue other than what you're saying. So I think you need to speak to a lawyer. Based on having a VAWA approved, the judge should terminate your deportation. Magnet on TikTok has a criminal trespass, now a green card for 10 years. Am I safe to travel? Well, if you had your criminal trespass prior to you getting your green card and you told immigration about this criminal case and they saw it and they gave you your green card, then they approved you for your green card and all is forgiven. Generally, I don't know where the criminal trespass was. Generally speaking, criminal trespass is a violation anyway, not a criminal offense. So based on little knowledge that I have about your case, it seems like you're okay. If you want to be 1,000% certain, have a consultation with me. Raifel Berju on YouTube asks, I have met all the requirements to apply for citizenship, including the physical presence requirement, except in 2020, I had a trip out of the U.S. for 9 months. This was I answered that already. 9 months from when you came back. Rick's on YouTube. Hello, I have a green card as a child, but I haven't been to the U.S. for over 15 years. What should I do? Well, it seems, Rick's, that you probably abandoned your residence. You could possibly try to do a special SB1 visa to try to reinstate your green card at the embassy, show it was not your intention to abandon your residence as a child. You're now just becoming the age of majority, 18, 19, and it was never your intention to abandon your residence and try an SB1 visa. But if you left the U.S. when you were 15 years old and now you're 30, I think you're going to have a hard time getting that SB1 visa. Gurjeet Kaur on YouTube. Hey, if we are an international student and have applied for asylum and got a work permit, can we work more than 20 hours? Well, here's the answer. The answer is yes, because you can work based on your asylum. But once you work beyond what is allowed on your student visa, you have now violated your student visa status. So if your asylum were to be denied, you would fall out of status because you violated your student status by working more than 20 hours off of campus. If you have a strong asylum case and you feel confident your asylum case you're going to win, so you don't care whether you violate your student status, then yeah, go work off campus for 50 hours for all you care. You win your asylum case, and you don't have to worry that if you lose, you don't have to worry that you don't have a visa status to fall back onto. RAHULGPT on Instagram asks, is the H-1B the only way or the best way for me after graduating with an MBA and my partner to continue to be stateside? Both are naturalized Dutch citizens. The H-1B is a very good way to do it. It's not the only way. You can do EB-2 visas, invest in your own business. Perhaps you can, if you have an MBA degree, so it's probably you're in a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math. And then perhaps you can get OPT for 3 years, 3 months. There's national interest waivers. There's EB-1s. There's lots of different ways to do it. So depending on what your credentials are. Nessie, you can go back to school. Get another student visa too. Nessie's signature in TikTok. Hi, how long will an adult adoption take to process? You can adult adopt all you want. It's not going to help you for immigration. Once the adoption is passed, once the adoptee, the person getting adopted, is over 16, they're unhelpable. Kadex Bell on YouTube. Hi, I'm married to a U.S. citizen filing a marriage petition, but I don't have pictures of the wedding. Will that be a problem? Well, certainly doesn't help not having pictures of a wedding, but if you have other pictures as well, then that would be great. You know, if you're living together with your spouse, you know, it's cheap to take a picture. You take out your phone and snap pictures. So just do it over the next 8-9 months. Casey on YouTube. Hey, Brad, I submitted a VAWA petition based on emotional abuse and verbal abuse and other things from my husband, who's a green card holder. How long before I receive a notice, work permit, and social? Well, based on your husband being a resident, you cannot put in an adjustment application until the priority date is reached. So if you filed the VAWA petition before April of 2025, the priority date is reached for adjustment, then you would file an adjustment, and then you would put in for your work permit, which you'd get in 90 days. If the VAWA was filed after April 2025, you need to watch the visa bulletin. Once the visa bulletin is reached, then put in for your adjustment, and you would get your work permit. You could also wait for the VAWA petition to be approved, but that's going to take at least 3 years before you get your work permit if you go that route. Malia on YouTube asks a question. Hi, Brad. I have mass anxiety about the ICE raids. That being said, I'm an adoptee and a citizen, but I have friends that are going through the legal process, but I'm worried about their status. If people are going through the legal process, especially for adjustment of status, and they have legitimate cases, they should not be worried. They'll get their green cards. If you are on the street and you're walking around, ICE doesn't have the right to stop you and arrest you just because you look undocumented. There is no such thing as you look undocumented. So a lot of times they violate people's rights. And if you have good lawyers, you can have the entire deportation process thrown out because the evidence that they got was illegal in the first place. But yes, there is a concern about ICE raids, ICE on the street. They just got $40 billion in more funds. They're going to have the biggest police force in the history of the world. They're going to build more detention centers. So yeah, there's a concern, and there's nothing I can do to lower your anxiety other than to say that if your friends are going through the process, then that's the right thing to do. Everyone should be trying to go through the process as quickly as they can. Christina on them to question whether or not you were abused. It's possible that your fingerprints have not cleared. It's possible that you're in the approval pile and the officer just hasn't gotten to stamp it approved. So we don't know. I don't know what to expect, certainly because I wasn't there on the interview, so I don't know how it went. But anything's possible. Kiki on YouTube asks, hey, Brad, my daughter is Canadian, overstayed because her dad is a U.S. citizen and applied for her, and she received the I-797, but now we don't know what to do. Well, if your daughter's under 21, she should file an adjustment application. If she's over 21, she is undocumented, and you would need to speak to a lawyer. Jay, Nanatui on TikTok asks, I was issued a conditional resident card, a visa, but I arrived after 2-year marriage anniversary was given. And I was given a 10-year card. Is this okay? Yes, because if you arrived in the United States more than 2 years after your marriage, you get a 10-year card. So good for you. Let's see who else we got here. Sunny Man on YouTube says, hi, Brad, I want to apply for my 73-year-old mother to get a B2 visa. What are the chances I got my green card last year? You do well, the chances are 0 because you do not apply for her visa. She does. Whether or not she'll get a green card depends on what country she's from and what ties she has to her home country. So I would need to know a lot more. Mommy Charm asks on TikTok, I lied on my visa form. I do have hardship waiver. I got my 10-year and then my citizenship. Am I in trouble? You are not in trouble. You got a waiver. A waiver is a request for forgiveness. You got forgiveness for life. So unless you lied after you got your waiver, you're perfectly fine. They cannot take your citizenship away. You are perfectly good, Mommy Charm. Bertine Edmond on TikTok asks a question. I'm married to a woman, and I'm a woman. Can I get my green card out of this? She's in the Navy. The answer is yes. You can get a green card in same-sex marriage. You have to prove the same thing as in a traditional marriage, which is you have a bona fide relationship, which is you live together every day and you have a financial relationship. And that includes for people who are married to people in the military. Their military will make arrangements for their married family to live with them at some point. And that's what you would need to do. Seda on YouTube asks, hi, Brad. I'm on active F1 visa with my husband and 2 kids dependent on me and 1 kid U.S. citizen. We're thinking to apply for asylum. Would you suggest that? Well, if you have a good case for asylum, yes. If you don't have a good case for asylum, no. Of course. Hi, Brad. This is Yasser. Hi, Brad. Can we talk about DV lottery winners' benefits? What would you like to know about DV lottery winner benefits? There is no benefit unless you get a green card. And then you get the same exact benefits as any other green card holder. Ophelia Weekend asks on TikTok, how much does a joint sponsor need to make to sponsor a spouse for someone? Well, you have to be 125% above the poverty level based on how many people are dependent on you. So let's say, for example, you're a single person and you're sponsoring your spouse. Anything over $30,000 a year would be good. For each dependent on your tax returns that you're dependent on, I would add, it's a little over $3,500, but to be safe, add $4,000 per person. So it's you and 2 dependents, so that's 34, 38 plus your spouse, then that's $42,000. Oh no, I'm sorry, 38,000 because you and the spouse are 30, and then plus 2 dependents, so that would be 38,000. So that's kind of how you do the math. Jay, I answered Jay. Busta on Instagram says it's safe to apply for adjustment of status if I entered on a B1, B2 visa. It is if you're in a bona fide marriage. It is not if you are not in a bona fide marriage. So if you are in a bona fide marriage, yes. You're not in a bona fide marriage, it is not safe. Basically, if you follow the law, safe. You don't follow the law, not safe. DS102 on TikTok says, just how related does your degree have to be to your job offer for the purpose of an E3 visa? It has to be related, substantively related, more related than not. E3 visas from Australia, it's the same as an H1B. Blondie on TikTok, my husband's an I-45 was denied because I screwed up the I-864. Something was missing. And then I submitted now an appeal. How long is the process? Forever. Withdraw the appeal. If you made the mistake on the I-485, the I-290B, which is a motion to reopen, it's not even an appeal, is going to be denied. Because you can only make a motion to reopen if generally they made the mistake, not you. I would refile again and do it properly. I think you're just wasting your time. And while this motion to reopen is pending, your spouse is subject to deportation. Once you refile the adjustment, he's not. So far, you're 0 for 2. You did the adjustment wrong, and then you made a motion to reopen instead of refiling. I think it's time, Blondie. You get a lawyer, Blondie. Esther Okoro on YouTube. Can I self-sponsor as a registered nurse? I've been married with denial based on fraud charges. You cannot self-sponsor a registered nurse, and if you got denied for fraud, you got a big problem because if it was fraud for marriage fraud, you can never get a green card for the rest of your life. So if you have a pending asylum, that would be the only way for you to get your green card. If it was some other fraud, then perhaps you can get remarried again and do a waiver. But you got big problems. There's no self-sponsorship as a registered nurse, that's for sure. Let's see who else we got here. We have Daniel on YouTube. Hi, Brad. I have a green card for 20 years, but I never registered with the military. Will I have a problem now applying for citizenship? No. I assume you're over 31 years old now. Assuming you're over 31 years old, it's too late to apply for the registration. You had to do it by 26. It's now 5 years after 26. So your good moral character period has lapsed over that 5 years. So being over 31, you're fine. Assuming you're over 31. King Cups Matavlog on YouTube. How long does it take for an EB3 visa for a Philippine passport holder? I have a priority date already. 3 to 4 years. That's getting job sponsored in a skilled position. Alexa Acevedo on YouTube. What's the bar return if you got denied asylum appeal? It seems like if you got deported, you have a 10-year bar, whether it was for asylum or for some other reason. Nairobi on YouTube. My dad is a citizen, but I have TPS, which is temporary protected status. If TPS ends, would I be able to stay in the United States while I do adjustment of status? I'm over 21. You cannot adjust your status through your dad's citizenship if you are over 21, unless you are in legal non-immigrant status and your dad filed a visa petition for you years ago and the priority date is current. So that's not a good option for you. Everything you said in there, you can't do. Lisa Plummer asks on YouTube, hi, Brad, if I got a green card based on marriage, now I'm a U.S. citizen, and then I got divorced, can I sponsor someone from my home country? Yes, you can, Lisa. You can, Liz, you can fall in love, fall out of love, then fall back in love again. That is perfectly okay. All right, so we're coming up on about 45 or 50 minutes. I'm going to do 2 or 3 more questions. Gas Man on TikTok. Can I file for marriage green card if I've been here less than 2 years? I originally came on a visa. As long as it's in a real marriage, absolutely. Why not? And the last question of the day, Mama on TikTok says, my I-130 got approved 1 month ago. I filed the I-864 for my wife, and I didn't make enough last year. Mama, that's not a question, that's a statement. Let's take one more question then. Salvatore on Instagram says, I'm a green card holder through marriage. Can I travel or not? The answer is yes, you can travel. You have a green card, 100%. Now, they may ask you questions on your return about the validity of your marriage, but as long as you're in a real marriage, yeah, go travel. All right. And Java, last question. For K-1 petition, does the petitioner have to be actively living in the U.S.? Not necessarily, but you have to show that you intend to be actively living in the United States by the time your fiance gets her visa, and that you are both going to the U.S. to get married and then live in the United States permanently. What if your spouse, all right, one more, Christina Donaldson, what if your spouse married someone else while you're still married and you didn't know about it? Well, if you were in a bona fide marriage, then your spouse seems like he's a manipulator, he's a bigamist, and I would start asking you questions about other forms of extreme emotional abuse, and then perhaps doing a VAWA case, or maybe, God forbid, he was even physically abusing you. And MBH, does working in tech with a ward within the company qualify for self-sponsored talent visa? I'm on an H-1B. If you got an award in the company because you were a critical member of developing ChatGPT, yes. Or something earth-shattering, yes. If you got an award for Employee of the Month, no. So it depends. What did you do? And Abdul, I'll do one more. Why not? I keep saying last one. I feel bad. Everyone keeps sending questions. Please, my friend has a parole through the VAWA he files. Is it safe for him to travel? Absolutely. Advanced parole is safe to travel on VAWA, on pending adjustment, as long as you stay out for less than 3-4 weeks, as long as you have a valid bona fide case filed. It's not a BS case. All right. So that is going to be it, folks. I will be back in 2 weeks to answer more questions. Please follow me on TikTok. Please subscribe on YouTube. Please follow on Instagram if you're watching. And I'll be back live shortly. And of course, I'll be dropping new videos every day, so please watch out for them as well. Thanks all for watching.